Thank you. I'm so excited. Glad that you could join us. All right, so we are going to what love? What we gonna do?
Hey there, it's your girl Patrice Stokes, radio and podcast host, poet, photographer, and published author. Yep, that's me. I'm excited to welcome you to the all new Therapy Thursdays with Therapy on the Mic, brought to you by Inspired on Purpose, where our mission is to inspire people to see themselves through a different lens, to discover healing and their God given purpose using therapy and photography. Each week, we are here to guide you through the journey of developing gratitude, growth, and healing, no matter what season of life you're in. Join me live every Thursday for an interactive Q&A with me and our special guests. You might even win some awesome prizes. Miss the live show? No problem, I got you covered. Replayed on Spotify and check out inspiring clips on all my social media platforms. For even more exclusive content like behind the scenes interviews, courses, and resources, consider our monthly membership. Sign up for my email list at www.inspiredonpurposeservices.com and follow me on all platforms as Inspired on Purpose to get in on special offers, discounts on therapy and photography services, and merch like my recently self-published 3-in-1 transformative self-care journal called Gratitude is Always in Season. Get more details for all of this in each episode description. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay tuned for this week's special guest. Together, let's get ready to be inspired on purpose.
Speak on it radio, 80s, 90s, now.
Hey, y'all. It's Patrice Stokes, your host of Inspired on Purpose. Welcome to another Therapy on the Mic with Therapy Thursdays. I'm so excited to be here tonight with you all as we are streaming on 4 platforms, y'all. 4. And I am making a quick note in here, real quick, to some people, but I'm excited. So I'm going to give y'all some time to come on in, join, tag some folks, share this with people, whether if you're on YouTube, Facebook, if you have the link to my website, which is just www.inspiredonpurposeservices.com, and you click on the podcast plus resource tab and you'll be able to get onto the live stream there, or you can just listen to the radio station on Speak On It Radio. And so you can find all of those things on all of those different social medias, the links to be able to join the live if you want to actually chat with us, ask a question, or whatever the case is. So, yeah, I'm excited. And I just want to know how you all are doing tonight. Love, how are you doing?
I am great
Yeah, why are you great?
because I'm off. I've been off for 2 days,
Yeah.
and today is a beautiful day.
Yes, today is it's hot. It's hot today.
I'm not complaining.
I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I'm just stating it's almost 90 degrees. So definitely after being in air conditioning most of the day, I definitely realized when I came outside, I said, "Oh, okay, we in here."
We can go swimming.
Really, I was like, I was about to say we in there like swimwear,
There you go.
like for real. Like we could definitely go swimming. So
Oh, by the way, I just subscribed to your channel.
you did. Well, thank
You're
you. And
welcome.
I appreciate that. And so if you are listening on any platform,
Speak on
make
it
sure,
radio.
yes, make sure that you subscribe to Inspired on Purpose. Make sure that you subscribe to Speak On It Media. Or is it Speak On It Media on YouTube?
It's now the Speaker Box
Or
podcast.
is it Duh?
Duh.
So that way people know.
DASPEAKABOXX podcast.
Yes. So make sure that you subscribe to both because you're able to listen to this because of those things. So I'm excited.
Yes, you are on the road to 100 subscribers.
For real?
Yes, you're on the road.
Oh, I'm
You're
on the road.
31. Yeah, you're 31 subscribers in.
Look, that's how. Look, small steps, baby
Hey.
steps, but we get there. We get there.
Look, you got 38 videos, so
hey,
that's dope.
look, social media is a beast.
You feeding the people.
I'm trying. I'm doing everything that I can to feed the people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, you all, we are in for a treat tonight. We've got an amazing lineup tonight of conversation. Tonight's topic is about the power of therapy. Very simple. As you know, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so, as a therapist, I have been doing therapy for years. And not only that, but I've also been very blessed to be in a lot of different capacities, working with youth, young adults,
Yeah, they can. All right. You can hear me now. So we are just vibing here. Um, but if you can hear me, make sure give me a thumbs up to make sure that you can hear. Yeah. Okay. Can you still hear me, B? All right. So as we continue to have the conversation tonight, and I do want to ask you, B, how are you doing as you're listening? How are you doing tonight? I definitely want to make sure that we are, uh, broadcasting and then also just chiming in to see how everybody's doing tonight as we get more folks on here. So, how are you doing?
um,
Um,
okay.
okay.
All right. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. We're good again. I love these emojis. Thumbs up. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Cool. All right. So, what we are going to do is this. So, B, as we are engaging with you tonight and as we're getting more people on here, let's do a quick song request. And then we're going to get into our mindfulness mantras of the night. Our special guest will be on at 7 o'clock tonight, Miss Ranada Dalton, who is also a licensed therapist and many, many other things that we're going to talk about tonight. So it's going to be dope to have two therapists on here. But what I would love to do is if you want to put in the chat, be one song that you want to hear in chill mode, looking forward to the content tonight. That's what I'm talking about. I appreciate it. Well, can you think of a song a song you want to request, like a chill vibe that you like to hear? Because Lamont's gonna play it for you as we go to a quick commercial break, and we're gonna get some more folks on here. So, is there a song that you want to request? As you think about that song, if you want to put it in the chat, and then Lamont will play that for you as he is our DJ. And want to give a shout out to as well to all of our amazing sponsors tonight. We want to give a shout out to, of course, Speak On It Radio, Speak On It Media. Give a shout out to Spoken Word Elevated, Leo's Alkaline Water, Herbal Intellect, Run with Wine, which we're going to talk about that in our experience last week that we had for a wellness event that we went to. I want to give a
Idle
shout.
joint.
Yep, we're getting there.
Oh, sorry.
I want to give a shout out to, of course, you already said it, but the Idol Jorg, who's one of our newest sponsors.
Transformative self care journal called Gratitude is Always in Season. Get more details for all of this in each episode description. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay tuned for this week's special guest. Together, let's get ready to be inspired on purpose.
Hey, 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 y'all.
Yep, you're good.
Hey, y'all. We are back. We are back. Um, we continue to learn and grow, and that is one of the reasons why we continue to be thankful for all the ways that we believe that the Lord has given us opportunities to um, do what we're doing. This is not easy. But I'm grateful because if there's one thing that the Lord has shown me over and over and over again, is no matter what you're going through, is to always be grateful and to always have gratitude because of the things that He's showing us through the different ways that He allows us to do what we do. And and I'm seeing different comments in different places. So y'all have to excuse me um, if I'm looking off for a second. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining us live. Like I said, this is probably like our second or third time going live, and it's dope because, like I said, we have been doing this for a few years, but each year there's like new nuances of how and what we do. Yes, this is a radio show and podcast. Yes, this is also it's a radio show and it's a podcast. But you can always listen to the replay, and then we'll have other things that we're developing and growing. Facebook is kind of having a little bit of technical difficulties right now, so
Okay, so okay, all right. So if you can hear, okay, just give a quick thumbs up. We're gonna walk through all of this tonight together. Like I said, it's gonna be a dope night. Um, and more importantly, like the thing that I'm really excited about tonight is the topic of power therapy, because therapy is one of those things that continues to be an ongoing area of growth for myself, but also as a therapist, and what I'm able to provide as a service to others. It's something that I continue to um, enjoy doing, but also like I love just the ability to be able to see people grow. Like there's nothing more fulfilling than seeing and feeling people grow through the number of ways that I've watched over the years, whether it's through having one-on-one discussions, whether it's being in group sessions, or any of those ways, or just even a resource like my book Gratitude is Always in Season, and I'm gonna share that here in a second. But as I think about that, the one thing that comes to my mind is just the ability to be able to see people grow. So if you okay, no, I had to hear something for a second. But as I think about all those things, one of the things that I really wanted to talk about tonight is how can therapy be a powerful healing tool in your life? That is what we're going to talk about tonight. But even more so, the other thing that I really want us to talk about. Yep. But the one thing that I want to say that I'm really grateful for is just the ability to be able to um, see how we can all develop in different ways. And so, as I said before, I'm your host, Patrice Stokes, with this, which is called Therapy on the Mic with Therapy Thursdays, where we talk about all things in terms of the power of healing, gratitude, growth, and even mental wellness, as this is the month of mental health awareness month. And so, I am a therapist, a speaker, an author, which this is my lovely book called Gratitude is Always in Season. It is a book filled with my poetry, photography, and also self-reflection questions. And I use it individually in group sessions as well as with groups. And so in group sessions and also individuals, as far as with clients and things like that. And then also just for your own. Inside of it are lots of goodies that you can see. So there's my poetry in here. You can see, and then like there's a picture actually that I took when I was in Ghana, and so I had to serve, and I was inspired by my time there and wrote a poem called Little Girl. There's other pictures in here that have sayings or what I would call motivational sayings that you can actually take these out of the book and you can frame them. So those are always cool to do. And then in the very back of the book, there are other little jewels that you can use. So there is a gratitude journal, gives you ways to journal. Also, even things to help you to think about ways to care for yourself, whether if it's daily affirmations, how much water you take in, even daily reminders, and then just things throughout the week that you can be grateful for that you can write about every day. And then also I have QR codes in the back that have other little special things that you can, scan and take care of. I'm really excited. A very hard space that was not only it taught me how to deal with challenges, but also how to find gratitude even in some of those challenges. But one in particular, well, 3 chapters are gratitude for self. The second is gratitude for the journey. I mean, gratitude for relationships, and the last is gratitude where I find I need the most gratitude in. And I don't know about you, if you would say that these are areas that are challenging for you, which are the most difficult out of those 3 for you to find gratitude? Relationships or gratitude for the journey? I would say right now for me, it is gratitude for the journey, just because it is challenging sometimes. I think we look at people, especially sometimes on social media, and we can get this thought in our head of, oh, wow, they've got it easy. But we have no, may actually be a huge, huge process. And so, sometimes we see people posting or sharing about the polished areas of their lives where they don't see all the things that happen behind the scene. Like, you all see some of that here, but yeah, the things that go behind the scenes for us to even be able to do what we're doing now is nothing short of a miracle. And it definitely is because of the grace of God. And so, I'm a Christian. I love Jesus. And yes, I'm a therapist. And yes, I, counsel people who don't believe in Jesus. And that's fine because everybody is on their journey and will be able to get to that point where they will decide, what they choose in their lives. And in that, I believe in those conversations, that is where people will find and discover who they really are. And so I believe that it is God's will for us to try to accomplish a lot of things. But if we are not connected to our purpose, we will live this life and wander and trying to figure out how and what we're supposed to do, what we're created to do. And that is why my company is called Inspired on Purpose, because our mission is to help people see themselves through a different lens, to find healing in their God-given purpose using therapy and photography. And the photography piece is in therapy. And the answer is a lot of times people have challenges with seeing themselves through a different lens. And I shared a post some weeks ago. Years as I've looked at myself and how, as much as I love taking pictures, I don't mind getting in pictures, but I see, my body has changed. And some of it has been because of joy. But regardless, I have to embrace all of who I am. And I'm passionate about helping people to walk through is to be grateful for the season that you're in right now, even when it's difficult. And trust and believe. I understand wholeheartedly. So when, as a client, if you decide to go to therapy and seek me out as your therapist, that is the one thing that in a lot of different ways that I help you walk through is how to find gratitude, growth, and healing in the season that you're in right now. And we get to talk about what we want. That's ahead of us is being able to embrace what is right here in front of us. And so that is why this topic tonight is so important. This topic tonight is so important. And so we're going to have on here in just a few minutes our special guest. But I just wanted to kind of share a quick what I call our mindful mantras tonight so that you can know kind of where we're going with this. And so if you're still with me, if you can just give a thumbs up, just so I know that you're here and that you can hear.
Important, and what's our role in all this stuff, right? Because sometimes it can feel really daunting when we think about what therapy is. um, and so I do want to share this. We had a really great time last Thursday through Saturday, so I want to give a quick shout out to Run with Wine CEO and founder Anitra Harris, who did an amazing job putting on an amazing event. And I had the opportunity to be a sponsor with my company Inspired on Purpose, LLC. So that was great. And so my husband also was with me, and we had a chance to get some footage and just some really awesome things that took place, from just being able to hear the stories of lives that have been changed. Run with Wine is an organization that focuses on helping women of color who have dealt with any form of abuse or trauma or chronic illness. So whether if it's any kind of health problems, or even if it's a chronic disease or domestic violence or sexual assault, any of those things, that it actually, this program helps women to live better, whole lives. And a way that that happens is by doing uh, watching what you eat, exercising, movement, finding community that helps you to develop and grow in ways that you can only really do in community. And so all of those things was really great to be able to hear about, but also to be a part of. And so Thursday we did the live broadcast. It was a lot smoother, but we got to do the live broadcast there. And then on Friday we did the gala, which was a fundraiser, but also had music. Give a shout out to my husband who brought a few good men to perform, and shout out to a few good men. You all did an amazing job. Y'all rocked the stage. So shout out to you. I'm gonna tag y'all in here too in a second. Um, so that was great to see a few good men in there. And as I'm saying this, if you are on Facebook Live, if you could tag some folks in here, because I definitely would love for y'all to chime in because I can see all of the uh, all of the responses as well. So that way you all can be a part of it. Be a part of it. But yeah, so there's that. And then on Saturday, which was a really dope experience. On Saturday, to um, we had the opportunity to have some wellness. We had the chance to get a massage. We got to do sound bowl therapy. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of or experienced sound bowl therapy. It is a really great experience, and it was one of those things that, to be able to do it with my husband, but also to be able to do it in such a way that it really did help calm. Because actually, I had a headache that day, which is crazy. I had a headache that day, and so when I did the sound bowl therapy, and a big shout out to Kyle with Blue Ridge Healing Sanctuary, and you're gonna hear more from Kyle and others soon. So, but she had an opportunity to share her therapy, her form of therapy, using frequency waves, frequency, and just being able to see how sound can also be healing. So I thought that that was really awesome too. But all of those things, and then of course we ended it with being able to work out with Studio G. So shout out to Studio G for joining us as well on our therapy on the mic the week before last, and also for being able to lead us out with an amazing time on uh, the wellness as far as exercise is concerned. So that was really awesome. So I'm saying all that to say that we looked at all these forms of really tools for emotional balance, because each one of these things can really help us to find healing, but also to help us to find purpose. Oh, I'm very faint. Now I can. Okay. Um, let's see. I'm up all the way. Oh, you know what? Maybe. Let me see how much.
I think because you're talking into the headphones and it's really quiet.
Can y'all hear me now?
It's a delay.
Okay.
They can't hear.
Oh,
So I can talk to you so that way you can keep talking.
okay.
Alright, so you're doing great. I'm looking at you on TV. That's fine.
Okay. Um, okay, if y'all can still hear me better, hopefully, give me oh, that's why. Mm. Yeah, I got it. I think I know what this was. Ooh. Can y'all hear me better now? All right. If you can hear me better now, let me know. Let me know. Let me know. If y'all can hear me. Okay, now you can. Yes, yes, yep, yes. Okay, cool. All right, you can hear me. Renata said yes. Okay, all right, y'all. So I'm going to introduce Miss Renata, and then we are going to go to a quick commercial break. So then that way we will have her back on here in just a second. But I just want to share a couple of interesting facts about first why this conversation is important, why this matters, and then I also want to share about Miss Renata because she's just that awesome. And thankfully, I've gotten a chance to know her for, I guess now the last 3, 4 years. It's been that long, Renata. But it's been a blessing to know her and to see her in her element, and just also learn from her as a therapist has been a blessing. So I'm grateful for her. But I just want to share real quick about why this subject about the power of therapy is so important. So, 3 things. The first is, did you know that 1 in 5 US adults experience mental illness each year? And this was a study that was done in last year. So 1 in 5 US adults experience mental illness each year. The second fact is Black and brown communities are less likely to receive culturally competent care. And I want to say that because when I went to, and I had opportunity to go to a conference, or not a conference, but a workshop called Our Therapy Lab, Tuesday, and I got a chance to go with Miss Renata, and it was so dope to see so many Black therapists. I think there are about 30, maybe about 30 therapists there, and so Black therapists there, from psychologists to psychiatrists to different areas of therapists that work in different ages, ranges, backgrounds, everything. And so one of the things that is a common concern, or sometimes even a complaint from those who seek out therapy from the Black and brown communities, is that they feel that there is a disconnect when it comes to being able to hear from a therapist that is culturally competent, meaning that if I share things about my personal experiences, and a lot of those experiences have a lot to do with my ethnicity and my upbringing, that I don't want to have to share that on top of the traumas that I'm dealing with. And so it's like I'm teaching at the same time while I'm trying to seek help. And so those are the things that can be hard. And so when I think about that, it just makes me realize, like, these are the things that make having therapists of color so important. And so that is one of the reasons why I do therapy on the mic, and why I am also a therapist, because my very first experience of going to therapy was actually seeing a white woman. And though she was great, and I learned a lot even in that experience, there were things that I realized that culturally were very different, and I had to sometimes over explain just so that she understood where I was coming from. And because certain things aren't necessarily needed to be explained, they're just known. And when you have those kinds of experiences, it makes the difference when you are developing healing practices and coping skills when you're going through therapy. So I think that's really important when we think about that. And then the last thing I want to share is that therapy reduces symptoms of anxiety, depression, trauma, and improves emotional resilience. And we're going to talk tonight too about how important that is, especially when it comes to our relationships, because when we think about what's going on in our society right now, there is a growing need for people to have a healthy awareness of self and also others, and being able to have relational, healthy conversations and communications with others that really helps people to work through their issues, but also still being able to have healthy conversations with people, whether if it's someone that they're really close to or not, and just healthy communication, which is so important. And I believe that, we all have our areas that we need to continue to develop and grow in, that helps us to see ourselves through a different lens. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And so I want to share real brief, because I'm going to have her come on here in a little bit to share about what she does. But I'm so excited for Miss Ranada, who is not only a licensed therapist, but she does a number of things that you all are going to hear about tonight. And it brings me joy to know her for all that she does and all the people that she helps. She does a lot of stuff. And if you don't know, she was actually on our show in 2024, back when we were talking about a topic on gratitude and healing in the area of sexual integrity and healthy boundaries. And so, Miss Renata, what can I tell you about her? She is not only a licensed therapist, she is a certified sexologist. She is an inclusive sex coach and the founder of Beautifully Human and Empowered Living, which I happen to work with her in that area as a contracted therapist under Empowered Living. And so I'm so excited and delighted to have her come on the show. And so she's going to talk about the power of therapy, from her perspective, and even just her own personal experiences in being a therapist, and what she's seen in her field, and how all of the things that she does, how that impacts the work that she does, and how she helps others. So I want you all to stay tuned. If you are listening to us on the radio station, like I said, you go to Speak On It Radio. And I'm going to put in the chat so that you can actually listen to the radio station, until we can get some things worked out with a few of the kinks. But I'll put it in the chat again. I'm gonna put it actually in two places. I'm gonna put it here, and it should show up, but maybe it's not. I'm gonna show it here and here. So I'm gonna put it in the chat right here. Bam. Mm-hmm. There we go. There we go. There we go. All right, and then I'm gonna put it in the Facebook chat. Now I'm thinking that all of these things connect, but maybe they don't. May- but I'm not seeing them, which is the weird part. So I don't know what's happening. But it's all good. It's all gravy. Like I said, when you're doing something new, you just make it work. You make it do what it do. You make it do what it do.
Let me see if I can remember everything. So I'm a mental health therapist. I've done that for over 18 years. I do sex therapy. I do life transitions, not life transition. Anxiety, um, women who are high and overachievers, kind of helping them find that balance, and kind of stepping into being authentically them. I'm an author. I do public speaking, do workshops, retreats. Um, have a radio show with Athena called The Empowered Hour. And I'm sure there are other things that I do that I'm not thinking of at the moment.
Beautifully human. Did you mention that?
Beautifully, okay, so I have a private practice, which is Beautifully Human. And then I have a group practice that I co-own, which is Empowered Living. So kind of similar businesses, but one is just me and one's with a group. I
Yeah.
do more of the sex therapy, sex coaching with Beautifully Human. Um, I do some of it with Empowered Living also. So yeah, that's high overview of what all I do. And then oh, it's supervision. I do supervision for some organizations. I'm sure there are other things, but that's good for right now. And then you asked, how did I become a therapist?
Mm-hmm.
So, long story short, I originally wanted to be an OBGYN. I think it was my junior or senior year of high school, I ended up volunteering at this organization that allowed teenagers to be therapists. Well, therapists. So Essentially, it was a highlight. Teens would call in, and we would just kind of coach them through whatever the situation was. So it was more coaching, but they called it therapy. Um, so went to college and was a pre-med and a psychology major. And through a series of events, the good Lord was like, "Nah, you get ready to be a therapist." So I was like, "Okay, all right, that's we'll just drop a major." Plus, if you was looking at my grades, I wasn't getting into nobody's medical school because, yeah, was very blessed. I didn't have to study, and then I got to college. It was like you got to study.
Yeah.
So I was 1 point away from being on academic probation. But my mama got me together real quick, and I ended up on the days list. So
Wow.
that is the short version of how I became a therapist.
That's dope. That's dope. Um, so in light of you, so let me do this. Do you hear feedback by any chance?
I don't.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's do that. Let me do this. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on. There we go. All right. All right. So yeah. So I do want to ask you this question though. I think that is really important that you said that you realized somewhere along your journey that med school wasn't going to be for you,
Mhm.
but you did realize that you still wanted to do something in the service based work. But what kind of like helped you go towards that direction? Because this kind of goes into the conversation that we had when we were at the a meeting for the art therapy lab, and they were
Mhm.
talking about how do we retain or even get people who are interested in the field of therapy in black and brown communities, especially as we think about the huge need for
Mhm.
therapy in our community. So what kind of made you make that shift or realize like, this is what I should do?
It legit, legit was recognizing that I wasn't. That's not what God wanted. Um, I went to a meeting and the things that happened at the meeting, I remember talking to God. I was like, "Well, what we gonna do?" I'm obviously paraphrasing this conversation, but God was like, "You gonna be a therapist. That's what we doing." Um, and in my mind, I was always going to be a OBGYN and a mental health therapist. I don't know how I was going to do both, but that was what I thought I was going to end up doing. But God blessed me with a lot of amazing mentors and individuals to kind of help me through that process. I will say I didn't really meet a black therapist until graduate school, I think.
Oh
Um,
wow.
the program that I was a part of, it was. I'm trying to remember if anybody black was there. I remember there was a Hispanic woman that was over everything, and there may have been one or two, but my first like for real interaction, like face to face in person, was probably at graduate school. Um,
Wow.
but I think what kind of helped me stay was while in undergrad, I got the opportunity to kind of part of my job was to help psychology students figure out what to do with their degree. Because psychology, I like to say, it's like a fancy, I know how to play well with people degree. Uh, I mean,
Yeah,
there's
go to.
more to it,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
a big part of it is you just kind of learn how to interact with people, and you learn behaviors and things like that. And another part of that position was also being another wonderful lady. We were over the minority portion of that program. They wanted to be very diverse, so every month we had to pick a different population to introduce students to.
Yeah.
So whether it was Black History Month or Hispanic, but whatever you could think of. We did religion, we
You did
did
everything, huh?
we did everything. But that was the goal was they were smart enough to recognize that this is a very white program, but there are other people in this field.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I don't think I ever made that connection until I was gone.
Oh, wow.
I knew it was white. I knew that, but I don't think it ever clicked like, oh, they were very intentional about, no, we got to make sure our students see that there are other people that have different diversities that are in this field.
Yeah.
And then, so I went to Ball State, then went to CTS, and that was an interesting experience in itself because I had no intentions of going to seminary, uh, but that's just where I ended up at. So I think it was just the right people were placed in my life at the right time,
Yeah.
and just trusting that things were going to work out the way that they needed to, and just kind of being the black therapist that I did get to be, just being very empowered by them
Love
to
that.
recognize these are the things that you need to know because you're walking into a space where you're probably going to be the minority most of the time. So I'm blessed that I have felt very supported throughout the years in this career.
And I love that you said that. I mean, because again, life is truly about being on a journey, just as it is a journey to even have this conversation, to do what we're doing, online, to be in two different places, to, do the radio station, to have all these technology things. Like, it's a journey, right? And like the overall thought is, what is the heart of the thing that we're trying to get at, and that is to help people heal, and to find purpose in their lives. And therapy is, I believe, probably one of the best places that you will find that. And of course, when we think about it from a spiritual standpoint, emotional or physical standpoint, there are many other things that go along with the ability to find healing and purpose. But I think, especially in our community, in the black and brown communities, it is one of the biggest misconceptions that I think we continually somehow like not consider. It's becoming more, what's the word? It is becoming more common that I think people in our communities are beginning to understand the importance, or at least have an idea of what therapy is, but to the depths of what can be done in therapy, or what types of therapy, in the areas and ways that therapy can help people. I think that's still, there are a lot of misconceptions in that. And so, we last month, or not last month, last year, when I had you on my show, we talked about, finding gratitude in the areas of sexual integrity and boundaries. And, one of the things that I love about what you do is that you help people understand, their bodies, their sexuality, and even just understanding all the nuances of what, you know, sex is. And sometimes when we hear that word, depending, especially if we're talking like, and I'll just, be frank, like as a Christian, and it's like we don't want to talk about it sometimes in the church, but we surely doing it. And so it's like, well, why are we being quiet about such an important topic that is a huge part of who we are? We are sexual beings. And if we don't understand and find healing in those areas in our lives, then we're not fully going to be able to live out our purpose, because either we're dealing with sexual frustrations, or either we've had sexual traumas, or either we found places in our lives that we have not fully embraced. And because of that, we, hide, or we're ashamed. So, can you talk about that, and in terms of the work that you do in those areas?
Okay.
I know it's
That's
always a
such a
mouthful,
big
right?
question.
I know. Sorry, it was a lot. Wherever you want to go with that.
um, so I guess to give more backstory of my story, um, because I wanted to deliver babies, I met a mentor that was like, "Well, why don't you be a marriage family therapist? Then you could talk about, you could work with children, and be able to talk about sexuality. Um, and so, and he was Catholic, so like I got, it was very interesting how everything worked together. Uh, but to me it made sense. It fit. That was the field that I felt like I do well in, just because it takes a lot to kind of knock me off my square, if you will. I'm pretty. I like to think people I'm easy to talk to,
You are.
and I like to think that I try not to be judgy or anything like that. I try really really hard. You might get a side eye every once in a while, but I try to fight it. But but I think, especially when we talk about with the church, I think there are some churches that do it. Just even this month being Mental Health Awareness Month, my church is doing a whole series about it. So one of my
That's
amazing
awesome.
friends, Hazel Owens, is always talking about how you can have Jesus in a therapist,
Mm.
uh, which I
Those are
think
shirts.
people,
There are actual shirts out there that say that.
yes, but
Jesus
I
and plus
think,
therapy.
yes, I think that there's just this society has basically said that if you struggle with mental health, that's like something totally different than health in general,
Mm.
which we have to get back to that holistic model of how we heal, because
Mm-hmm.
so much is interconnected. Just
Mm-hmm.
think about like moving your body, how much that does for you.
Yeah.
And I don't think we always acknowledge how much everything is connected. And even with sexuality, I try to remind people that sexuality is not just sex. That's just the part that everybody focuses on.
Right.
But that it also includes intimacy. It includes sexuality. It includes just knowing your body, like being able to advocate for yourself when you're at the doctor. Just all those different things. And I think because we try to pretend like those are such taboo topics, but everybody's talking about them, just with your friends or whoever you feel comfortable and safe to have that conversation with. So I think we just have to do better at creating more spaces for people to feel comfortable to have these
Mm-hmm.
conversations, and recognizing that all this is talked about in the Bible. Song of Solomon talks about sex. I mean, God created it. So I mean, why don't we talk about sexuality? Why don't we talk about, there are plenty of places in the Bible that talk about how beautiful we are and how wonderfully made we are and all those things. And it's not just the physical part of sexuality. So I think it's just a matter of, it's okay to talk about those things. We just have to create the space.
Yeah. I love that. And I mean, what do you say for someone that says that they are struggling with whether if it is, because you talked about there's your sexuality, and then there's also like you being just a sexual being. And then for someone who has been dealing with trauma from sexual abuse or sexual assault, because that was one of the things that quick shout out to Anitra Harris with Run with Wine, and her organization does is helping women particularly who have dealt with sexual assault. So how do you help someone who has been in any of those categories through to find healing?
So that can look a number of different ways. So it might be a matter of, you haven't had the space to even talk about what happened. So let's have the space just to even process it and talk about what happened. It might be, you might have to do some self forgiveness because you may be blaming yourself for it, or there's been some victim blaming. So just kind of recognizing that it's not your fault that that's what happened, and then just kind of unlearning some stuff and learning other things. So like one big thing is consent. I feel like we're slowly starting to have more conversations about consent, but consent is one of those things that it can change at any moment. I can tell you yes right now, but then tell you no later, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Uh, or just having good boundaries. A lot of us don't really have good boundaries, or we have good boundaries in certain areas, but not in others. So it can look like just building those up. It could even look like, let's just talk about how you even came up with the ideals and the philosophies that you even have about sexuality. Let's unpack that. Let's see, do we want to stick with what we've learned? Do we want to branch out into other things? So it's a combination of things that kind of happen at whatever pace that it needs to happen.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I love that you said that there's a pace. And I think sometimes people can get into therapy and think, oh, well, if I take 1 or 2 sessions, then I'll be cured. And then it's so funny. It's like I literally, for the last few days, have been watching stuff, not intentionally, but watching stuff. I'm like, man, we're going to talk about this. Me and Renata, we got to talk about this. Because I always feel like we always have just, just as friends, even therapists, but as friends, we have great conversations, but especially when we start talking about things that are related to therapy. So, I watched a show with Lamont yesterday called Forever on Netflix. It's a series. Have you heard of it?
I haven't.
It's really great. And, because I work, I have a passion and a specialty in working with youth, particularly like high school kids and, college students. And so, but definitely, younger and older. But I've worked with them probably the longest in my career of counseling and therapy. And so these kids are high school kids. I think they're juniors in high school. And it's kind of about this young love, the awkwardness of, understanding who they are, but then also understanding each other and, dealing with their own, sexual, desires and all these different things. And they're young black kids. And so the the guy, his parents are married, and seem to have a healthy marriage and show affection and love in front of him in a healthy way. And then also, he plays basketball and all these things. And then the young lady, her mom's a single mom, and she had an incident where her ex-boyfriend had posted a video of them having a sexual situation. They don't show it in the show, but basically, he was a ball player as well, played basketball, and was getting ready to graduate and go, in the league, in the pros and all that stuff. And so everybody ended up finding out about it because it went viral because he ended up sending it to a friend, and then I guess somehow the friend put it out into the viral world. So she had already went to a school where she was the minority. But on top of that, when this came out, then she felt super isolated, and she told her mom. Her mom didn't know about it, but she told her mom she wanted to leave because she felt that she didn't fit in, and just a lot of things with race and stuff like that or whatever. Even though one of her best friends was white, but she just didn't feel like it was a good space for her anymore. So her mom moved her to a Catholic school that was more expensive and all these other things. And so she kind of had to start her life over again. And that's when she meets this guy. And so the interesting spaces about all these things and their encounters with each other. One shows me that at a young age, seeing high school kids particularly having emotions about their own lives, but then intertwining that with another person that is young and still trying to figure out who they are, and dealing with all the feelings and social media and all these things. It's just a lot, which I can't imagine what it would have been like if I were in high school in this day and age. I don't know. But I say all that to say that they have these sexual encounters. They don't necessarily do anything initially because they're trying to figure each other out. But it's like, I like you, I don't like you, you hurt my feelings, all this stuff. So what do you say for young people when they're thinking about getting sexually involved, and when you have multiple partners, and especially when you're thinking about if you've had any form of trauma, sexual trauma at a young age, and you're encountering or getting involved sexually, like how does that impact your mental state or your emotional state as a young person?
It could do a lot. So, I mean, your brain doesn't stop developing until your late 20s, so around 25 to 27. So, think about, as an adult, think about kind of all the things that you did before you got to that age. And some of the choices are probably not the wisest. Um, some of them, you probably regret. I know quite a few people in our age group who are like, that guys, social media didn't exist for real, we was in college. Uh, Worst case, we got to worry about being on a DVD or a VHS. I don't know. But, but it can definitely mold how you view sexuality,
Yeah.
positive or negatively. So, ironically, these last few days, I've been having conversations with clients about they have children that are the age that they were the first time they had sex. And so, just kind of thinking about because their children are at an age where they're still that innocence, and their children were able to grow up in a different environment than what they grew up in. And a lot of my clients have been like, it's I could imagine my child doing anything because they're such a child. They're still a baby.
Yeah.
But yet it's
And
still when
so are
I
their
was that age,
bodies.
yeah. When I was their age, I've often heard from quite a few people, particularly men, that I started having sex because I thought that was the thing to do. Or I was pursued by an older woman, which that's a whole other conversation because it is a whole
Yeah.
lot of women predators out here that
There are, and not and I think that men older and younger don't realize that they were molested,
absolutely,
because that feels like as a young man or as a man that, oh, if a woman even older pursues me, then I should, get props for that, versus that actually wasn't something that I wanted or I even asked for. And even if I said no, then I don't want to make it sound like I'm weak, because as a
sure,
man, I should be able to, hold my ground. So not realizing like that's molestation, and that can create a whole lot of trauma down the road if it's not acknowledged and also dealt with in a healthy way.
absolutely. But and society is terrible at this. If it happens to a female, we all up in arms. If it
Right.
happens to a male, it's kind of like good job. And I believe it's Ike Turner. They talk about his story, and I believe he's the one that it was an older lady, I believe, in the church that kind of pursued him,
Oh
and
wow.
just kind of how that impacted his life.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to, you're still learning language and your hormones are doing all these things, and you're trying to make sense of this adult is pursuing me,
Yeah.
or whatever. But it's just a lot to, even if it's somebody that's age appropriate, there's just a lot of things that you just may not know or even recognize. Because I think a lot of times people know how to have sex in theory. I will say in theory because some people don't. But we don't think about all the other stuff that comes along with sex versus we think about, oh, you can catch an STI or an STD or you can get pregnant. But we don't talk about like soul ties. We don't have those conversations
Yeah.
about the emotional readiness that you need to have.
Right.
We don't have those conversations of how does that what's really going on with my body when this is happening when I'm connected with somebody,
And
and
when you
then
connect with multiple people, because now this the saying is, how many bodies have you had, and which is so subjective, because it's like now we're not even people, we're like I'm just a number. So when I hear, and some especially, it does something to me when I hear women say, oh, I've had, I got a big or a long body count or whatever, terms that they use, as though they're becoming more masculine and saying like it's a good thing, when in essence there's actually a lot of trauma behind that, but it's hidden behind pride, which says that, oh, I can hang like a guy, but not realizing as a woman, and even just understanding how, as especially with where we are in the stage and this life that we're in, where understanding the the body of a woman, biologically women are not as strong as men. Now, can women do like physical things that a man can do? Yes, but there's always consequences to that. So when a woman, carries so much weight, that can mess with your reproductive organs, so you can one day not have children. I knew a girl in high school who played football, and one of the things that was said that is that if she continued to play, that could mess with her ability to have children one day. And I mean, you see women out here like Muhammad Ali's daughter, or other folks who, have gone on and done, professional things like boxing and, the other things that men do, and they figure out how to still live a life and be a mother, be a wife, and all these things. But I think there's something to the idea of that we still have to look at the more softer sides of women, and even what are the things that we can celebrate about a female's reproductive organs or even a male's reproductive organs, and how we need to respect our bodies in that manner, especially when we are deciding to be in relationship with each other intimately. Does that make sense? I know that was a lot, but
It makes sense. But to that though, I would even add, I think we don't give enough men credit. I don't think ever. I think it's a situation where there are men and women that some of them have a really high sex drive and are okay with having sex with multiple people. I think there are some people who have had sex with multiple people but didn't necessarily want to. Then I think there are those that just don't necessarily have a desire. So I think it's in both. I think it's not just specific to one group of people, but I think society tells us stereotypically that that's what a man wants. But even I'm just thinking, I've had a lot of conversations with women in their 40s, their late 30s, mid to late 30s that are like, I have this high sex drive and I want to have sex all the time, but I'm connected with someone that doesn't.
let's
And
talk
that
about that. Go there. Let's
that's
talk
a
about that.
but that's a
Because I
whole other
think that's
thing.
important. I think that's important, especially, like my husband and I are part of our marriage ministry team at our church. Shout out to Solid Word. And we have some really candid conversations in our workshops and just different things that for me, like, we've been married this year in October, it'll be 5 years. And one thing that I've realized talking to other married couples who've been married for 30, 40 plus years, is understanding like the role of sex in marriage, but
Hmm.
also realizing that it changes.
Hmm.
Sometimes the roles reverse as you get older, and one could be not, maybe not as, sexual, and then maybe something changes for whatever those reasons are later in life. But at the same time, it's like, how do you have those conversations with your partner to say like, I want sex more, or I don't want sex as much, and which doesn't mean that I love you any less. I'm just, or maybe the things that we want to do sexually don't match, and then how to respect each other's boundaries in that.
I feel like you asked multiple questions, so I'm just gonna answer.
I do that a lot. I do that a lot.
It's okay. I think so. Part of I am very big on this is what I for me. This is what I say. I should not be sharing my body with you if I can't have a conversation with you.
Oh, come on.
But I recognize that all that's not the case for everybody. And even though I say that, I would be lying if I've ever said I've never. I've always felt comfortable having conversations. But I think that's a big part of sexuality that we don't always talk about. Is we should be able to say, this is something that I really want to try. And let's have a conversation about why or why not we're going to try this. And like you said, it can change. A lot of things happen. Our bodies switch all the time. Hormones and all the things. Having children, just work, life. And then you look up, I can't tell you how many couples I've worked with that they're like, we look up and we haven't had sex in months. Which, that can be difficult on a marriage, depending on how important sex is to your marriage. Because for some couples, if you're asexual, it may not. It's fine. We're okay.
Yeah,
We're
and
good.
when you say that, for those that may not understand what that means, what do you mean by asexual?
So those will be individuals that don't necessarily have a sexual desire. Doesn't mean that they don't ever have sex, but that's just not a desire of theirs. So some individuals that I work with have been like, I'm just fine with, a hug, some cuddling, stimulated conversation, but I don't need to have sex.
Which is interesting in and of itself. And do you think that that is something that someone, if they do feel that way, is that something to maybe kind of look into, especially if maybe it was different for them at an earlier stage in their life?
I think it depends. So just because it was different at an earlier stage in your life doesn't necessarily mean it was something that you really wanted to do. Because we have to acknowledge that sometimes we do stuff because we feel pressured to do it, or we feel like that's they say we should do it, or that's the right thing to do. It's a host of reasons why. If there are some concerns, I definitely recommend talking to your doctor, making sure that there's nothing medically wrong. Because sometimes it may be a chemical imbalance. It could just be, you know, you have a deficiency in one thing, and so it's causing other issues. So, like, in my first marriage, we tried to have a child, and I didn't know until later in life that when you have low vitamin D, that can cause fertility issues. Didn't know that. Uh, but it, I went to a fertility doctor, but that never came up in conversations. I think I read it or talked to somebody else, and they're like, "Yeah, I have a low vitamin D. Could cause some fertility issues." So, like, talking to your doctor to kind of find out what's going on. You can ask your doctor to do, a blood test about where your hormone levels are. You may be deficient in one. So, rule those things out. And then, you can still have conversations about, okay, well, what's going on? Is this a trauma response? Is this a, I'm just not interested in being with you? It could be a number of things, but
Which
yeah,
is a whole nother conversation if that comes up. Like, I just don't want to be with you. That's kind
and,
of
and,
where I'm
and
at.
that's a thing. I know some people who are like divorce is not an option, but I don't want to have sex with them, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I mean, and so if you all are listening, whether if it's on YouTube, on Facebook, on the radio station, or even on my website, if you want to like put in a question in the chat, feel free at any point because this is good stuff. I've always got a ton of questions for you, especially when it comes to this area. But one question I do want to ask is, if other people are thinking about what they want to ask is, can you share a breakthrough moment that you've seen in your work that reflects the power of therapy?
Um, so many. The one that's coming to mind is probably the client that I'm working with now. I met this client. We've been working together for a while. I'll just say that. And just to see how they were when we first started working together, and now how they are very much stepping into who they are, unapologetically. It's so beautiful to see. Just even the way that they hand out boundaries like candy.
Come on.
Uh, they do. They hand them
They
out
handed
like
down
candy
boundaries
on
like that.
Halloween.
No.
Yes,
No.
and I love it. I love it. The way that they advocate for themselves, especially at work, because they work in a place that's challenging to say the least,
Yeah.
and they're able to say, "This is I'm not doing this," and here's why. Uh, they're they're at a space where they are not willing to allow fear to paralyze them anymore. Um, they're in a space where basically they want to enjoy life.
Yeah.
When they go on to glory, they want to be able to say, "I enjoyed life, and I did what I needed to do. I fulfilled my purpose, but I also had some fun."
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that's uh, to see someone that struggles to realize their power and then for them to walk in it fully, it's a beautiful thing to see.
That is. And I mean, I love that you said that when they're able to walk in their full power and who they were created to be. I think that is a big part of what therapy ultimately is helping people to embrace, right? Because I think we all come into this world with some form of a limp, right? Whether if it's emotional, physical, mental, financial, whatever it is. And as we grow up, and this is not a knock on parenting because parents don't get a manual on how to raise children.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it you get whatever you got from your parents.
Mm-hmm.
So when you decide to live your life, it leads to this reality of wanting to make choices to the best of your ability, knowing that there's going to be mistakes along the way. And so when you start reflecting and taking time to meditate, which I'm going to share this mantra that we shared at the very beginning, and ask you what are your thoughts about it. But when we start, basically reflecting on where we are in our lives, it really then sometimes can be daunting when we think about, man, I really need to work on this area, or I didn't realize how much trauma I really had in this area because I've been just going, right? Whether if it's on autopilot or I just push through so I don't have to deal with some of the pain of whatever it is that might be causing me to, avoid, or whatever the cases are. But when I think about this mantra, because we always do like a mindful mantra at the beginning of each show, the mantra today was therapy is not a weakness, it's a strength that leads to healing, growth, and the life you were always meant to live. What does that mean to you?
A lot. Think about it. As a therapist, we get the pleasure of having several intimate relationships with different people. Um, you come to a person that you don't know from a can of paint in most cases, and you're telling them things that you may not have told a single soul on this earth, and have no intentions of telling a single soul on this earth. And you get to sit there and feel validated, not feel judged, and be able to work through these processes. Um, I have an amazing support system. I'm extremely blessed that I have an amazing support system. But there are things that I share with my therapist that I feel like I would have to, I could just say it to her in a way that I may not be able to say it to other people.
Right.
Um, just because that's the relationship that we got. Um, so I did it creates that space, and
Yeah.
it helps you have that space to have revelation. And um, I remember going through school, I had a supervisor say, never take that aha moment away from a client. Like, they may show up and we might be able to be like, oh, I see where this is going, and I see the revelation, but they haven't seen it yet. But when they have it, you just celebrate it and you love it and you get excited and all the things. So it's therapy is a very powerful tool,
Yeah.
but it is not the only tool. I think it's just like everything else. You have to incorporate it into your life along with other things. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just like I can't go to the doctor and they give me a prescription. I fill it one time and I never go back and get it refilled when it's something I need to take consistently. Um, and you have to incorporate the tools. Um, we're not Jesus. We're just talented.
Come
Some of
on.
these things.
I love
I
that.
said
You said we're
I'm
not
just here's
Jesus,
the reason
we're
why I
just
say that.
talented.
Because I think sometimes people also think that you come to therapy and you're gonna be healed 1, 2, 3 sessions in. And the reality is
No.
you had a lifetime to get like this. I'm
Come
not saying it's
on.
gonna take a lifetime to learn this stuff, but it's
But
possible.
yeah. Yeah. And knowing that it is a journey, right? It is
Absolutely.
clearly a journey. And that means that, coming into a therapy session that's 50 minutes to an hour is is a small part of the work that you really have to do. It's you unpacking that, maybe being made aware of it, or being able to share some things that, because you are in a safe space, that you feel, inclined to open up in a way that maybe you've not done that with anybody else before. Because I've definitely had clients that will come into a session, and they will start saying things. They'll be like, I've never said that to anybody. And, my response is, well, I'm glad that you felt safe to share that, because
Hmm.
it takes a lot of courage to open up, to share something that you have no connection to this person, outside of the fact that they're telling you that they are
Hmm.
skilled, talented, and they have had the experience to help you navigate through these waters. But also to know too, like, that every therapist has their limitations, which kind of goes to what I was saying before about the cultural competency when it comes to care. And how important would you say is it for someone to have a a cultural or ethnic connection when they're looking for a therapist that will help them through that journey that they're trying to go through?
I would say it's super important So one of my first therapists, um, I am a talker. Anybody that knows me knows I talk. And I remember I would go to therapy and I didn't know what to talk about. Um, and this is like the school I went to, you had to go to therapy to graduate. So,
Right.
like, I am a graduate student. I am newly married. Several people died shortly after we got married.
Oh wow.
And I had nothing to talk about. There's an issue. So, the theory that this particular therapist like to use essentially, um, I'm trying to think of the easiest way to describe it. Basically, they create anxiety in the room, and whatever bubbles up, that's what you talk about.
Mm.
We had to have a therapy session to talk about how that doesn't work for me. And we talked about culturally how that could be kind of triggering for some people. Um, we came to the mutual agreement that we were not a good fit, so we had to find somebody else. And it wasn't the easiest conversation because who's thinking I gotta fire my therapist, but I had to because that was my thing was I'm not paying you to sit here and figure out what to talk about.
Right.
So the next therapist, I had plenty to talk about. Now, mind you, I didn't have a black therapist until 2020. I went to graduate school in 2005.
Wow.
And even in 2020, I was very aware that, and it wasn't that I just needed a therapist. I didn't just like care what their race was. But at that point, we all know what was going on in 2020. A lot of
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah.
And I pretty much had to tell my therapist, I don't want to have to explain something to you if I'm in the middle of a rant or
Right.
or what have you. I'm holding a lot of space for a lot of people right now, and I don't want to have to take time out to explain certain nuances to you. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you got to find a black female therapist because that's what you need right now. So I can say what I need to say, and you get it, and I have to go back and explain it. Uh, so it's super important, and not even just with race. Like I said earlier, I work with a lot of high and overachieving women, and a lot of them would say they are the person that everybody goes to.
Mm.
So that's a different mindset versus you're the one that goes to everybody.
Yeah.
So totally different mindset.
Yeah.
So and these are women that society would says has their life together. So again, they have to feel safe enough to let their guard down
Mm-hmm.
and say, "This is what's going on in my life." I have quite a few
Mm-hmm.
therapists that are my clients,
Mm-hmm.
and even with that, like I know me going to therapy is kind of like I gotta make sure I say all the right, And what back in the day, I used to have to think, oh, I gotta say the right words because I know this. And my therapist could be like, you already know this stuff. I'm like, I know, but it's easier to say it than to do it.
Yeah.
So it's you need someone that's culturally competent to whatever it is that you need at that point in your life,
Yeah.
because one, you don't want to have to explain. Do I? There are things I have to explain to my therapist because they don't know everything. Uh,
Right.
and
Therapists, let
nobody's
me be clear so that people understand. Therapists are not mind readers,
no,
right? We're
no,
not, which
no.
means that if you are struggling with something and you get into a therapy session with me or Renata and you're wondering what to talk about, that's what we're going to ask you. So, definitely not saying that you have to have it figured. I mean, that's why you're coming to therapy because you don't have it figured out. But come to therapy with an issue, and it may start off with one, and then it may be like 50. But at least start with one main issue that you feel like is the thing that you continue to surface, that continues to surface every time you are living life, and start there and just start asking questions about, or at least share what's going on, like what are some of the challenges that you're facing, how are you feeling emotionally, what are you thinking mentally, how what are your relationships like when you're dealing with whatever that issue is, and if they're toxic, why do you think that is? Because a lot of times I feel that therapy is really us asking the right questions because the answers lie within ourselves, but we don't know that because we're too close to it. Would you
Absolutely,
agree with that?
we're too close to it. We need permission.
I like that.
It's a host of things. So to be transparent, one of the things that me and my therapist have talked about a lot is we don't talk about it as much right now though. Was me not recognizing I needed a bigger capacity of being loved, and so the trap that I will fall into is I will overcompensate because I'm a therapist and I have the capacity. I also grew up in a family where we show a lot of love. So, and I recognize that is a privilege that everybody does not have. And so, because I have this big tank to love and a few other things, it was showing up in some of my relationships.
Yeah.
And when I had to kind of come to terms with, no, you need to be with people who can love you more than what you thought you needed. And I feel like I've done that well with my female friends. Not so great with my relationships. So my current relationship, it was a whole lot of, oh, okay, I have been settling, and I haven't been choosing Renata because I've been so focused on all these other things. So like it's stuff like that. I'm a whole therapist. I talk about that all the time with other people, but life had to happen. Certain things had to fall into place for me to be like, oh, I get it now. So, and even with that, like how to make sure that I wasn't sabotaging stuff because that's another thing that some of us do is when things are going well, we're like, let me cause a little chaos, just a little bit, just a little bit.
No, that's real. That's real. But you said something that I think is so important is the self sabotaging, and that is something that I find. We talked about this actually in a small group therapy session that I did with some youth. And, the thing that I think about often when it comes to self sabotaging, it does start with our self love. Like, what do we think it means to love ourselves? And if we don't think we are worthy of love or being loved because maybe what we've been told growing up or because of maybe something we've done, like in this, you know, Netflix series, Forever, where, she got the brunt of the looks and the stares. He got the dap and the, good for you, bro,
Hmm.
kind of thing. But she's the one that was ridiculed for it. And, even when he apologized, it was like, let's try this again. And she was like, so basically, my life is wrecked and you get, the privilege and I'm just supposed to be okay with that and we supposed to be good? No. And it was like her, being able to stand up to him and to give healthy boundaries in that moment to say, like, I'm not good with this, and I think especially, when we think about how women have been either misused, abused, or taken advantage of in some way, shape, or form. And not to say that men haven't, because men have, and more men need to speak up when that happens. But I think when we look at women, so often, especially for Black women, we take on a lot. And I think when we think about the amount of, we talked about this too, I think one time you and I on the show about PTSD and post traumatic stress disorder, and how, especially in America, there are higher levels of Black people dealing with PTSD than those sometimes who have been to war. And looking at how that plays itself out in mental illnesses, or even just how we interact in our relationships and how that plays itself out when we have families, that therapy really is a part of that ability to heal wounds so that we don't pass those on to the next generation. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean it says in the Bible that we curses get passed down, and now we're paying for sins from our grandparents and all that. So I mean, um, a couple years back, I realized one of my struggles. I'm not gonna say what it is, but one of my struggles
Definitely.
uh, was one that I didn't realize was so prevalent on both sides of my family. Uh, and it didn't click until I had a conversation with my grandmother, and it was like, that's why I struggle in that area so much. Cause it's not just my stuff. It's I got some other people's stuff. So it's and even with that, sometimes you don't even recognize the stuff that you're carrying that you never even picked up.
Yeah,
It's
that's
stuff
good.
that it's kind of like when you buy a phone, how it's already got stuff installed on it, and you try to figure out, let me delete this because I don't need this app. I'll never use this app. It's like that. So,
Be like, this stuff has been here for a while and I've not actually like tapped into that. Yeah. And I mean, that really is what therapy does. It helps you to tap in to those, really hidden places that a lot of times are buried. Whether if it's out of, distress, the fight or flight syndrome, where it's like, when we're dealing with conflict or any kind of, trauma, we can either fight our way through that situation, whether if it's physically, verbally, mentally, or even just internally, internalizing that and beating ourselves up, or we flight, we run away, we try to escape. So that could be through drugs, sex, spending, unhealthy relationships, the self sabotaging, where every time we have an opportunity, we figure out a way to mess it up because we don't think that we're worthy of having that, that award or whatever the case is. But it takes a therapist, but it also takes a village. And so the last thing I wanted to ask you is, what role does having community when you're going through therapy take in all of this?
community is important. We are not. Life is too hard for us to do it by ourselves. We weren't created to do life by ourselves. Um, so you need community, but even with that, you have to make sure that you seek wise counsel, and use discernment, because there are some
That
people
part.
who mean well, but they just don't do well.
Right.
And no shade to them. It's just, even as therapists, we hurt people. We're human too. People make
Yeah.
mistakes.
Very human.
So I think, you know, kind of being very clear on what that role is somebody plays in your life.
Yeah.
So I was having a conversation with somebody, I think last week or week before last, and we were talking about, okay, well, come to find out, this person is just your party friend. That's what it is. This is not the friend that you go to,
And they need
that you
to
need to
stay
bare
there.
your soul to. This is your friend that where you need to have a good time. What you doing? And that's
That's it.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that you said that you can identify the roles that people play in your life, because I think sometimes we can give really precious parts of our lives to people who don't have the capacity within themselves, even though they may say that they do,
Hmm.
or don't want to. And,
Hmm.
we continue to go back because it's familiar. And I think that's another part of being able to unravel in therapy, to say, like, what are my boundaries and where do I need to, decide who should I allow into my community, because not everybody needs to be in it.
Hmm. And people roles change because people go through things. So,
Yeah.
in one season, Patrice might be the person I go to when things are tough, but there may be another season where she just hasn't doesn't have the capacity.
That's
So
good.
that season, she might not be the person that I go to.
That's good. That's good. I love that. Well, is there any last thing that you would like to share before we wrap up about what you do, or even just like your encouragement to someone who might be considering therapy, or maybe has been, maybe stopped going, and is like, I don't know, should I go back? What would you say to that person?
Yes, that's what I would say.
Go back.
um, Again, therapy is a tool, just like a lot of other things in life. And personally, I don't believe that you have to be in therapy forever. I think you can go, you know, do what, the work that you need to do, and then you might need to take a break. I haven't been in therapy consistently my entire life, or even once I started going. So I use it as a tool. You still have to do the work. Your therapist is not going to tell you what to do. They're going to help you figure out what's best for you. Because the reality is, they don't have the same experiences as you do. You're the expert of your life. You just might need some assistance with that. Um, and yeah, you might not even recognize the roadblocks or what have you. There are a lot of therapists that have a lot of different specialties. And even if it's just, I want to go to therapy because I had a client that they recognize that they don't do well in small spaces. So we did therapy focusing on that. So it doesn't always have to be these major life traumas. It might just be, I realize I'm going off on everybody. Let me figure out why. And that might just
That's
be a
facts.
temporary thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
or it might be something long term, and that's okay. If you're not ready to fully commit to therapy, there are coaches that do great work. The biggest difference between a coach and a therapist is a therapist is going to go deeper. Uh, we're going to look at the history of why you got there. There are workshops, there are retreats. I have two retreats coming up. One in September in Las Vegas, and
Okay.
so that one is for both of them are the same theme, just one is longer than the other.
Okay.
Both of them are focusing on just being enough and focusing on just recognizing who you are as a person
Yeah.
and being comfortable living in that the good, bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
The
I
second
love
one is
that.
in November. That will be in Cancun. So that's 5 days, 4 nights. Again, you're gonna work. You're gonna get pampered in both, but you gonna do some work.
Yeah.
And the goal is for you to walk away with at least a tool, at least a tool or two to kind of help you get started. I don't want anybody to think that they're gonna come and be healed, but it will be a jump start.
I like that. A jump start. A jump
Hmm.
start. Okay. Awesome. And how can people get in touch with you? Like if they're interested in receiving your services, how do people get in touch with you?
So you could either go to either company, empowerlivinginc.net
Mm-hmm.
or beautifullyhuman.com. .net, sorry, .net.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have a unique name, so you can Google Renata Dalton, and I'm sure I'm going to come up.
Google me, baby.
Yeah, Renata's a very unique name.
It's a
So
beautiful name.
thank you. Oh, I'm okay with it, but
Yeah.
I am lucky that if you Google me, it's not gonna be a lot of Renata Daltons that pop up.
Very
Versus
true.
if your name is, I don't know, Jane Doe. I don't know. Can't
He's
think of a
like, we'll
common name.
figure something out. Figure
I
something
was trying to
out.
think of a common name, but I was like, I don't want to say it by name, but that's their name.
Yeah, right. Right.
No,
Nothing against it. Nothing against what you're
no,
talking about at
no, no,
all.
no, no, no.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Yeah, no, that's good. Gotta do the work. B, she put a chat in here and said you gotta do the work, and that's
You
it.
have to.
Yes, B, you gotta do the work. That's actually something that we had like a little saying about. We gotta do the work, and
You
that's
have to.
important. Like just that's kind of like the take home is be prepared to do the work. I encourage people that going into therapy should be something that you should be scared of. I think whether you decide and just for those who are considering whether going to therapy with Renata, and then also if you're interested in getting into therapy with me, I work as a contracted therapist through Renata's company, Empowered Living. So shout out to you for that. So if you want and you need to take insurance, I can take clients that have insurance through Empowered Living. If you are paying self pay out of pocket, then of course you can do that, with my company with Inspired on Purpose. But here's the thing, there's a therapist out there for everybody.
Absolutely.
And if both me and Renata go to therapy, I say the same thing to everybody every time. What does that mean for you?
Absolutely. I will also add, because I like to tell my clients this, you chose to get healthy. That does not mean everybody signed up for that. Some people benefit from you not being healthy. So there
Oh,
is an ugly part of therapy that does not feel good, but
say
just like
that.
with everything, there's the hard part that is worth it at the end. But
Yeah.
yes, therapy you should be afraid of, but therapy is scary, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean when I say scary, scary in the sense that it is something that when you know that you need to do it, which is I'm gonna ask you this last question because I wanted to ask you this before, but I just want to ask you now so we kind of end on this note.
Okay.
How do you know that you should go to therapy?
How do you know you should go to therapy? That's such a good question. And I feel like I don't have I'm giving you a therapist answer. It depends. um, the first thought that came to my mind was when things are so difficult that staying the same is not an option. That's one. Um, being proactive. I had a couple that came to see me and they said, there are no issues. We're good. We just wanted to come to therapy to make sure that we got some tools because we're a new couple and we
Mm,
really like each other. We think we might get married, but let's just be
mm.
proactive. And that's what we did. We
I
worked
like
on
that.
what are the tools that put in place for when y'all do start fighting.
Mm. Come on now, that's good.
Yeah.
So being proactive and going to therapy is good. You don't have to. Something doesn't have to be wrong to
No,
go. You could just be like you. It's like your arsenal of tools where you
absolutely.
are thinking through how do I deal with this when, especially if you know you're about to go into a potentially challenging time in your life. Like it could be going back, going back into the workforce, or going back into a family situation. You've been away from certain folks for a while, or certain people that you kept your distance from for a reason. They're triggers. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how do I enter into these conversations again, especially after I've gone through something that has been really devastating, and people are going to start asking me questions about this. How do I respond? So those are
Or I'm
all really
about to
good.
be an empty nester. And what does that look like in a
Right. Michelle
relationship in real
Obama,
life?
actually, they had a post about it recently that she decided to go back to therapy because, or she decided to go to therapy because she was dealing with being an empty nester, which
Yeah,
I'm like, wow, for her to say that publicly, I think is super dope. There's a lot of reasons why I love Michelle Obama. We need more
absolutely.
Michelle Obamas in this world. Um, but I think that's such a healthy thing to even acknowledge, to say like there's so many different seasons of life that we go through, from the good things, to even like how do I deal with handling a promotion. Like
Hmm.
I went from making you know 5 figures to now 6 figures or 7 figures. Like I've never been in this position before. I don't even know how to handle myself. Like, or I just dealt with the death in my family or a friend, that was close to me, and I don't really know how to handle my emotions. These are all the things that you could go to therapy for. And don't wait until it's a problem. Like when you know that it's something difficult, or something that you foresee could be difficult, you should go. Would you agree with that?
I agree. So it's just like I started getting massages consistently because when I was at graduate school, my supervisor said, "You're about to start carrying other people's stuff. You need to get it out your body. Go get a massage." So, yes, massages are great, but I think of it more as a function for work. Not necessarily, yes, I think of them in relaxation, but it's more ingrained in me to do it for work,
Yeah.
to get stuff out of my body.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
good.
or even just drinking a lot of water. So like there's a lot of things that we're proactive to do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I know certain diseases run in my family, I might be more proactive now. Diabetes runs in my family. Um, so I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah.
Um, I am 42. My body is not the same as when I was 22. So
Me either. Me either. Right? All those things that we got to think about now that we heard people talk about when we were in our
absolutely.
20s, that now it's like, oh, I got to, if I got to go get a mammogram, or I got to get, certain things that I didn't have to before when I was in my 20s or 30s. And then also, too, like, even if you're young, like, that's another thing, too. If you're young and you're in stop. Sorry, my dogs. You are in your you are in your 20s, you are in your 20s or 30s, and one of the things that you start realizing at a young age is like, I've noticed some of the traumas in my family that has surrounded me.
Hmm.
So I want to get healthy, so then that way I don't go into relationships the way that I saw people in my family go into relationships.
Absolutely. Or even as you were talking, this just popped in my head. I had to have a conversation with my therapist about I am struggling with the fact that I can't wear heels like I used to. Um, my I got plantar fasciitis. Y'all learned so much about me today. And in my heyday, I was walking around in heels. I was doing a whole lot of dropping. These knees don't drop like they used to. Yeah,
So I was doing a
I
whole lot of dropping.
I was. I can drop it. It's a matter of how quickly are we getting up.
Oh, come on now. Right. You like the reflex ain't the same,
It ain't
boy.
the same.
It ain't
But
the
even
same.
something as simple as you can't wear heels like that anymore because your body doesn't like it.
Right.
So like I'm like I gotta get rid of some of my favorite shoes. But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that could be a thing that you're talking about in therapy because it's the thing. What brought me to therapy was I'm grieving a little bit that I'm getting older.
Yeah. 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 And that's such a good thing to even acknowledge. And again, these are the things that sometimes we don't even realize we're grieving, right?
Hmm.
Because we can go through life and we can grieve different seasons of our life and not realizing that, man, I don't know why I'm sad, or especially when people are noticing like, man, you seem a little off, like what's going on, and then when you start telling people about what's going on in your life or the season that you're in, that's when you start realizing like I'm actually grieving that,
Hmm.
or what I used to be able to do that I can't do now, which was something that even recently that I was dealing with because even I'm getting ready in 3 weeks, about to be in the Miss Indy Juneteenth pageant. Never saw myself in a pageant in my life. And, the interesting thing about being in the Miss Indy Juneteenth pageant is this pageant, their title or the subtitle is a therapeutic approach to pageantry. And when I was asked to do it and I thought about it and I was like, I'm not a pageant girl. I don't see myself as that. But when I think about what we've been able to do, the four contestants that are in this, four beautiful black women, all doing amazing things, but we all have our own struggles, but we've
Hmm.
bonded through it. And it's created a sisterhood within us. But we've also been able to see how, like, this pageant is not really about being in a pageant. It's really
Yeah.
about our self worth and our confidence and all of these things that sometimes when we're just walking through life, we don't really take the time to reflect and think about. But when I posted about it 3 weeks ago, and I was just looking through some old pictures and I saw how skinny I was and over the years how that's changed, and not saying that I want to go back to that particular size, but I definitely want to get smaller.
Hmm.
And in this pageant, it has made me be more aware of like, man, I've been holding on to some things
Hmm.
that can definitely come out in, my weight and all these other things. And so those are things that you go to therapy for, to say like, I'm dealing with struggling with certain things because food is a comfort for me, when I'm celebrating it and when I'm grieving. Like
Hmm.
that's something we talk about in therapy.
Absolutely.
So, but I could talk to you all day, right? But we gotta wrap this up though. But I do want to kind of give a couple of just call to actions as we wrap up our time. So we've talked a lot about what therapy is, how it helps, how to identify when you need to go, but also like what are your tools. So one of the things that I talked about before that I want to again mention, and I also want you to mention yours as well,
Okay.
Renata. But this is a self care journal called Gratitude is Always in Season. This is something that I offer to all of my clients and anyone who is looking to develop gratitude, growth, and healing in their life, through a variety of my poems, my photography, and then also self reflection questions. And so it is a really great tool to use whether individually or even in small groups. But also consider, if you are thinking about getting a membership, and if you are interested in wanting to do therapy sessions, make sure that you reach out to me or Renata. And so definitely there's always a need, and there's always open. Are you open? Are you available? Let me ask that question because I'm saying that I'm available to take on clients, but are you available to take on clients? Because I don't want to tell you you are.
um, I feel like this should be such an answer, easy question. Yes, no. More no than yes. Um, Empowered living is taking clients. I
Okay.
supervise everybody.
Okay. Yes.
But
So I
my
am under Empowered Living
she
and taking
is,
clients.
she is. Um, if you're a former client, yes. Newer clients, it just depends. I don't have
Got it.
any evenings. Um, I don't. At this point, I'm getting close to not even having like late afternoons. So if you're a morning person, I got a few spots. Um, But that's why you should go to workshops and the retreats because I have space for those.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Okay. Well,
Like
good
that
to
was such
know.
a long ass.
Oh no, no, no. We look. We were just talking about healthy boundaries. We have to know our capacity.
We have to know our capacity.
We
And
have to know
I
our
I
capacity.
love y'all and I want to help as many people as possible, but I also recognize that I don't my caseload needs to be smaller than what it is. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's real. And oh, and also too, I forgot to mention. I have a new shirt. Y'all can kind of see it.
uh-huh.
So these are my on the mic t-shirts. So it is a new exclusive collective. There'll be some other shirts that'll be coming out. But it's about having real conversations, real talk, healthy conversations, healing conversations. And so you can get that along with the book. And I'll put the link in the chat as well. And you also have books, my
I
dear.
do, and I was
So,
prepared this time.
yay! Let's talk about it real quick.
So I have three.
Okay.
Um, we'll go in order. So the first one is Adulting is a Trip. This is me
Yes,
and
it
Athena's
is.
first baby. Um, this book is a workbook. All of them are workbooks. This was created because we kept getting 25 to 50-year-olds that were like, I don't know how to be an adult. So I think most people assume we wrote this for teenagers, and we wrote it for adults. So what this is, it kind of helps you organize adulthood. So
I
that
love
may
it.
look like there's some, you're writing letters to yourself. You're talking about goals. You have prayer lists. You have coloring sheets. Because sometimes,
Yes.
they were high schoolers at the time. They both like grown now, but they we paid them to create some coloring sheets. So this is actually my book. So I actually colored in it. Uh,
Yes.
we have stuff like birthday reminders. Because at a certain point, you be forgetting people's birthdays.
It's so much.
Uh,
So much to remember. You like, look, I got enough to remember what clothes I put on today and I wore some shoes that matched. Okay? That's about as
Absolutely.
far as we can go.
Absolutely. We also talk about stuff like your emergency binder. So that's the if your house was catching on fire and you had to run out the house, you could grab this binder. It has everything you need to start your life over. So like a
That's
copy of your
good.
driver's license, a copy of your passport, divorce decree, adoption paperwork, immunization shot records, all the things. Because the reality is, most of us don't even know where that stuff is.
Right.
And
I
I
do.
obviously don't.
I do at least most of it. But yes.
I know what most of mine is. But just simple things like that. The
Yeah.
second book is more of a journal because we are a whole therapy practice, so we should have journals,
Yes.
right? So, there we go. All
There we
right.
go. There we go.
So, here we go.
There she go.
So it's the Be Free. So my sister did the cover. I told her I wanted somebody black with curly hair and Becker thick. So
I love it. All of those things. All of those things.
so this is one that kind of focuses on loving your body.
Yeah.
And then the last book is You're Enough Because You've Always Been. Ooh.
Yeah.
Again, my
I
sister
have
did the
that
cover.
one.
You do, you
Yeah, I
do.
do.
So
I like
this
it.
is fun fact. The title of the book is my tattoo.
Oh.
Uh, it is. And so the point of this book, God told me to write it. I didn't necessarily want to, but He told me to write it based on some stuff that I was going through. So it
Yeah.
is basically taking a year to date you and
Yeah.
to really get to know who you are because I firmly believe when we know who we are, we show up healthier in all of our relationships, not just romantic, but platonic,
Yeah.
familial, all the things.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those are my
That's
three
awesome.
books.
Awesome. 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 So, how can people get those books?
They can get them off of Empowered Living's website or get them off of Beautifully Human's website. Um, Adulting as a Trip is on Amazon, but just go to the website. If
I
you
feel you.
local, you can just kind of send me a message and I can probably
We
meet up
get it
with
to
you.
you.
So
We
you
get it
have
to you.
options. You have options.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I feel that on that. Yeah. I was like, yeah. You ain't gotta go to Amazon. Go to our websites, right?
Yes.
Go to her website. You can go to my website, which is www.inspiredonpurposeservices.com. Click on shop, and then you'll get all the stuff, right?
All the stuff.
All the stuff. So definitely do that. I was trying to make sure there's one more thing that I wanted to put out there. You are having a workshop, aren't you?
Yes. We are. However, I was trying to get everything finalized today, and we need to ask one person to do something, and then I can
Oh,
finalize it. So
okay.
I can tell you what the workshop's about, though.
Oh,
It's
okay.
really more of a panel than a workshop. So what
Okay.
we are going to do is we're going to have our amazing therapist for Empowered Living. So the panel we're going to talk about mental health and the impact that it has. So kind of similar to what we talked about today.
Yeah.
Um, the other part of that though is most therapists have multiple jobs. At least all the ones that I know. So this is also another opportunity for you to kind of learn more about our therapists. So kind of more of a therapist, meet the therapist kind of thing.
I love that. Meet the
Kind of.
therapist.
But it'll be have a little twist to it.
I love it.
So we should get it finalized by tomorrow, is what I was told.
Okay.
And it will be on the Power Living's website. We'll put it on Facebook, all the social medias, uh, so that everybody can know.
Dope. Dopeness. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely make sure to check that out, and she'll give all those details. I'll be on that panel.
Yes.
So I look forward to being able to hear, listen, and also share. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, so I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Therapy Thursdays with Therapy on the Mic. It has been a pleasure. If you are, you can also listen to the radio station, which I put the link in there for Speak On It Radio. If you would like to listen to some music as your outro, we normally play it on here, but technology said not today. Um, so it's okay. But there's always a will, there's a way. So if you do want to listen, if you're listening on YouTube, Facebook, or even on my website, if you're listening to the live streams on any of those platforms, just go to the link within the chat to get to the radio station link for that. And so, yeah, again, just saying the mantra for today as we close out, and that is remember this: therapy is not a weakness, it's a strength that leads to healing, growth, and the life that you were always meant to live. I hope that you all will be inspired with purpose on this show tonight and share it with someone who might need it, because we are all on this journey together. We're not an island. Love y'all. And thank you, Renata.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, y'all. So we are done with the show tonight. I hope that you all enjoyed it, and yeah, leave some messages in the chat if you are listening on Facebook or YouTube. Definitely, thank you so much again, Renata, for coming on the show. And that's it. That's a wrap. We will be back next Thursday with some more amazing guests on our show. We've got hopefully here some really cool guests that are going to be coming up before the end of May, but I can't reveal that just yet. And again, I just want to give a shout out to all of our sponsors. I want to give a shout out to Leo's Alkaline Water, Herbal Intellect, Speak On It Media, Speak On It Radio, Spoken Word Elevated, which we got some really cool surprises and partnerships coming up that we're going to be sharing about at the end of May. So Spoken Word Elevated is coming back. So more details on that. I want to give a shout out to Run With Wine. Shout out to Be Well Massage, Be Well Therapeutic Massage Spa. And also give a shout out to the Idle Jorg. The Idle Jorg is a sponsor, our newest sponsor, and I just want to say thank you for all of our sponsors that make it possible for us to do the work that we do. As we continue to grow and elevate and go through all of this, I just want to say thank you for walking with us, and thank you for all that are listening. Shout out to you, B, for coming in and chatting with us. And for those who were listening, but maybe just decided not to chat with us tonight, thank you for joining. And again, make sure to get your shirt. Get your shirt on my website, the Therapy on the Mic therapy shirt. Definitely hope that you enjoy your time and become a part of the Inspired Tribe community. And we will continue to have these conversations online, offline. I will be having some workshops and also some other things coming up here in the next, hopefully, month or so that I look forward to being able to share with you all. as a part of being a part of the Inspired Tribe community. So, any more information, make sure to check out my website, www.inspiredonpurposeservices.com, for more information. Bye, y'all.